History is rarely written with thunderous noise. More often, it is forged in profound silence. The final quarter of the 13th century played host to one of the most deafening silences in human history. The legacy of Rome, which once shook the earth with its absolute might, was gasping for its final breath in the weary hands of Byzantium. From the east, the Mongol storm was erasing the footprints of civilization in every city it touched. And Anatolia, the ancient heartland where the majestic plane tree of the Seljuks had fallen, was now a fractured landscape of broken principalities, searching for a way out amidst endless wars. At the heart of this chaos stood a small group of people who had journeyed from the steppes of Asia, the Kayi. For them, this was not merely a migration. It was a race to an appointment with destiny. Neither the grandeur of Byzantium could intimidate them, nor the brutality of the Mongols deter them. Settling in the misty forests of Söğüt, this community of 400 tents carried within them the first blueprint of history's greatest military and political architecture. Yet, the completion of this architecture required more than just the sword. It required a vision, a dream, and an unshakable faith. Today, in the first volume of this series, we will decode the transformation of a tribe into a global empire. We will descend into the roots of the legendary Great Plane tree that Osman saw in his dream, a tree whose branches would eventually cast a shadow over 3 continents. From the cold walls of Karacahisar to the first strike against the heart of Byzantium, we will examine every step with surgical precision. You will witness how this massive structure was built, from the first tax to the first sermon, from the first act of justice to the birth of a state. You will see how the architects of the East redesigned the world. History is not merely the past, it is the only key to understanding today. I am the Chronographer. If you are ready, let us journey to that first day when the sun rose for the house of Osman and to the point where it all began. The architecture is rising. Let's begin. Söğüt was not a choice of convenience. It was a masterpiece of geopolitical positioning. To the casual observer, it was a mere border town. But to the House of Osman, it was the perfect laboratory for a new world order. Positioned on the fragile Uksi, the frontier, it allowed the Kayi to breathe the air of both the collapsing Seljuks and the decaying Byzantines. While other Anatolian beyliks exhausted themselves in internal strife for the Seljuk throne, Osman looked outward. His architecture was not built in the ruins of his brothers, but on the conquest of the other. Every great empire requires a spiritual foundation before its first stone is laid. In the lodge of Sheikh Edebali, history was not just observed, it was envisioned. The dream of Osman, the vision of a great plane tree emerging from his chest and shading 3 continents, became the ideological blueprint for the Ottoman dynasty. It transformed a nomadic tribe's struggle into a divine mission. This was the moment the architects of the East realized they weren't just building a kingdom, they were sheltering a civilization. Karacahisar was the first signature of this new architecture. With its fall, the Kayi were no longer mere guests in Anatolia, they were masters of the soil. This conquest brought the first institutional milestones. The first tax, the bas, was collected, and the first sermon was delivered in Osman's name. This was the transition from a clan to a polity. The sword won the land, but the law secured it. The sun was no longer just rising, it was beginning to burn. The year is 1302. In the scorching heat of summer, the plain of Baphaeus, near Nicomedia, became the stage for a clash that would change the course of world history. This was not merely a border skirmish. This was the final, desperate move of the Byzantine Empire's central army to annihilate that small power they dismissed as barbarians on the frontier. Byzantium had the numbers, but the House of Osman held a weapon Europe had yet to master: light cavalry tactics and an unbreakable meritocratic system. Holding conquered lands is far more difficult than swinging a sword. Osman Gazi activated the magnificent Istimalet, the policy of religious and social tolerance. Byzantine peasants, suffocated by the heavy taxes and endless bureaucracy of their own emperors, found a lifeline in Ottoman justice. Osman did not touch the faith or the property of those he conquered. When the first tax, the bas, was collected, it was not a burden on the people's backs, but a fair price for the security provided to them. The state began to rise, not from the barracks, but from the courts and marketplaces. Osman Gazi was a warrior, but before the gates of Bursa, he chose to act as an architect. Instead of battering the walls, he chose to sever the city's lifelines. Bursa was a fortress leaning against the impassable slopes of Mount Uluda. Surrounded by fertile plains, a direct assault would have cost the lives of thousands of his men. Instead, Osman built two massive forts at the city's primary entrances. This was the beginning of one of the longest and most patient sieges in history, isolating the city from the world and slowly forcing it into submission. 10 long years, a decade where a generation grew up and another grew old. When the people of Bursa looked out from behind their walls, they saw an army that wouldn't leave. A will that did not shiver in the winter cold or surrender to the summer heat. Osman's army was no longer a besieging force. It had become Bursa's new neighbor. As the city's supplies withered, the legendary reinforcements expected from Byzantium never arrived. Constantinople was buried in its own shadows. While Bursa stood alone in the darkness of history, the sounds of the Adhan outside the walls whispered the city's new destiny. By the spring of 1326, Bursa could endure no more. Yet the expected bloody pillage never occurred. Osman Gazi's vision of Istimalet, tolerance, won its greatest victory here. The city was surrendered by treaty. Those who wished to leave took their gold and departed in safety. Those who stayed were entrusted to Ottoman justice. Bursa fell not to the strike of a sword, but to the superiority of a system. Now, on the maps of the Chronographer, a new center had appeared. A principality had gained its first true capital and its first grand palace. Bursa was now the heart of the House of Osman. As Osman Gazi prepared for his final breath in his bed, the news that Bursa has fallen was not the end of an era, but the first seal of global dominion. Osman Gazi's last will to Orhan was more than just a father's advice. It was the unwritten constitution of an empire that would shake the world for 600 years. Do not be a tyrant, protect justice, and honor the scholars. The sun had risen in Söğüt, but it had now become a fire that would light the entire world. The first masterpiece of the architects of the East had risen. In the next volume, we will see how this structure transformed into a massive imperial machine under Orhan Gazi, and how the gates of Rumelia were opened. If you wish to delve deeper into this architecture and own the exclusive blueprints and strategies featured in this series, explore our digital collections. The detail ebook for this volume of Architects of the East and our broader Imperial collection are available via the link in the description. Do not just witness history, own it. I am the Chronographer. Until we meet in the next volume, keep following the architecture. Farewell.